Hello, welcome to episode 35 of the Harry Potter painting series, and this one we're making a gaming board. So let's get straight into it. Right, here we are at the start of another project. Just come back from B&Q with this board. It's 4 foot by 2 foot, I think 1220 mils by 610 mils, 18 mil thick, and I've cut out, well, I'm about to cut out that part there, so that's waste, and then this bit along the bottom here. So the board that we're going to use is around about 530 mils by about 700 mils, but we'll get into that later on. So I'm going to nip out to the garage and get the saw out, and we'll cut it down to size, and then it'll make more sense. Alright, so that's the excess cut away from the board, so we're left with about 780 mils by 530 mil. But the most important measurement is the boards that you're going to use. So the Harry Potter boards are slightly, oh, they are 30 mils square, but the last square around the outside of the tile is slightly bigger again. But I'm using these ones that the Alchemist Workshop made for me. They're 30 mil boards, but exactly the same square dimensions. So it's 13 by 7 on each tile. So what I'm doing now is to just move them into the center of the board. So I'm trying to do this one-handed. But once you get them into position, you draw a line around the outside of the other 3 tiles. And then I'm going to line it then with the strips of cardboard that I've just cut out. So essentially I'll have a border around the 3 tiles, and then I'll have a border going around the outside of the board itself, so it'll look a bit like a window frame. And the plan is then to fill it with fun foam, which is the black stuff. You get a sheet of this, it's quite thin, and you can get it from art shops or hobby stores. It's only about £1 a sheet, and it's quite a big sheet. You need about 2 of them to do a board. So I'll get on with gluing down the strips, and I'll cut out the foam. Alright, so that's the strips of card around the borders now, and I've started to fill it in with the fun foam. Fortunately I've run out of fun foam, so I need to go to the shop tomorrow. So that's it for today. Okay, so on to the next stage. I've cut out the bits of the fun foam to go within the border frame. Oh, it's a bit of glue from putting the strips down. I use this canopy glue. It's like a quick drying PVA. I really like it. Because it's quick. So it's just a case of getting some glue. He says, helps if you open it. Get some glue up and down the strip. There's random blobs to hold it in place. Flip it over. And I'd advise you to put something over the top, just to put some weight on it to stop it warping or anything. It hasn't warped as yet for me, but you never know. And I'll just do this bit as well. I think this stuff usually dries in about half an hour. It's really good stuff. I bought it online from Antics. It's like an online web store for models. You can probably get it from eBay, I think, if you search for it. Canopy glue. Okay, right. So I'll do the other one at the other end of the board, and then we'll come back for the next stage. So it hasn't quite dried yet, but I'm going on to the next stage anyway. I've got this wire brush, and I just rough up the surface of the foam that we've just stuck down. Go in all four directions. Up and down. And across. Just to rough up the surface, ready for the next stage where we apply plaster of Paris. And go that way. I'll just use Polyfilla from B&Q. I'll go and mix some up now, and we'll go on to the next stage. Okay, so I've got my Polyfilla all mixed up. I like it quite stodgy, like you know, when you mix up ice cream and before it gets to that runny stage, it goes into like a mush. It's a bit like that. I don't like it too runny because it just goes everywhere. And this way I can control the height on the sides. So I just slap it on, he says. Surprising how much you go through with this actually when you're doing it. So I've got a palette knife now, just picked that up from an art store, and basically you just spread it out. And what you're after is a couple of millimeters at the sides to go over the top of the card, and obviously you want a couple of mils in the middle as well to go over the foam. So when you score it, you're still scoring plaster, and you're not going. If you go too well, if it goes deep, you know, you're all right. You got foam there, but ideally you don't want to hit the foam. You want to stay within the realms of the plaster. Hope that makes sense. So it's really thick here, so I'll try and spread it up. Doesn't really matter if you get any on the board, because when it dries you can just like sand it off. And it doesn't have to be smooth either, because I will, as I say, I will be sanding it. I'll just show you some of the walls that I sanded earlier today now. So, right, I'll leave that dry. It takes ages, so the less water you have in it, the better, really. The walls took about 36 hours, I think. Probably more than that. Because it will appear to be dry, but when you touch it, it still feels kind of damp. You'll get to know when it's dry, because it'll be like a brilliant white colour, and when you run your nail over the top, it makes a scraping noise. Right, happy with that. So it's just a waiting game now for that bit. I'll just show you the walls that I did sanded off earlier today. So this is going to be the wall up at this end. I'm going to have a door here. But it's been sanded off, but once I get the windows and the door glued into place, I can then think about filling any bits that have come away, like up here. It was too thin there. But, it doesn't really matter when you're touching up with little bits of plaster. It doesn't take as long as the whole board drying out, so don't worry about that too much. So yeah, the next stage for this is to score it. So I'll draw up a grid on here, like a brickwork grid. It'll be staggered, not like the gaming board when they're all in lines. So it'll look slightly different. So we'll get that sorted, and we'll come back for the next stage. So the next stage is to mark out the walls. What I've done, I've got a 20mm gap going up the way, and then a 35mm gap going across the way, and you just need to then stagger your brickwork. Obviously take into account your windows and stuff like that. So you got one brick there, and then I'll measure halfway between there. So I was about 17 when I went to school. And just carry on across the wall. So you got your brick pattern there. So I'll carry on and do the rest of the brickwork on here and the other wall, and we'll be ready for the next stage. Okay, so I've marked out the grid. The beauty of this is if you can't add up and you make mistakes, it doesn't really matter. So that's the windows in place to give you an idea what we're going to end up with. But the next stage is to score out the lines, and what I usually use is a metal rule and a dental tool. It's a bit better than using a scalpel because it's thicker and it's blunt, or more blunt I should say, than a scalpel blade. If you use a scalpel, it's just going to dig straight through and go into the foam, whereas this, just score it across a couple of times and you'll get a nice, it's not very apparent with this camera and the lighting, but you get a nice little groove in there. This is the tedious part, so you just groove out the brickwork until you're done. Okay, so I managed to pick up some more foam today. They've actually changed the name of it. If any of you are in the UK, get it from the range. It's like a hobby craft kind of place. I'm sure they changed the name on it. It wasn't called that last time. I'm sure it was just fun foam. But anyway, I've added that to the rest of the border, and then I'll put the plaster over the top of that then, and we'll be ready for the next stage. Okay, so that's all four sides plastered. Definitely a waiting game now, and just tidy up the edges there. Just spotted that. Yeah, just wait for it to dry, and then we can mark out the grid, the same as the same process as doing the walls, and then score them out. Okay, so I've scored out all the brickwork, and I'm just starting to glue on the MDF windows. Still using this canopy glue, fast drying PVA. So I'm just going around the border there. If I had more time, I'm under a time constraint at the minute because I've got to get this done in about another evening and a half. So I would normally tidy up the edges, but I'm not going to bother because you won't really see them anyway with the windows in place. shout out to Eddie at the Alchemist Workshop for making these amazing windows. Wouldn't be able to do it without him. He's an absolute star. Right, so I'll carry on doing these, and once this is dry I'm going out to the garage to give it a good prime, about 2 or 3 coats with Halfords grey. I've got some more today from in town, so that's the next stage. Okay, onto the end wall now. This was a custom made door from the Alchemist Workshop. I asked for him to increase the size quite a bit, and he's come up trumps, I must say. I love it. He's also got these little decorations, hinges, so I'm just going to add them to it, again using the PVA. Fiddly, but worth it. Let's try and get it level. There we are. I'll do the other two, and same deal, we'll be going out to prime this in the garage pretty soon too. Okay, so I'm out in the garage. That's the grey primer on it. I've decided to start adding white towards the top, so I'm just going to give it a dusting. I normally do this with an airbrush, but I think try and go light towards the middle and then a bit heavier. Just go over it a couple of times at the top so you get a bit of a transition in colour. I'll show you better here. That's a light dust in there. I'll go light towards the middle and then harder towards the top. That's what I'm after. Then when I add the colour now, I should get a nice little transition on that, hopefully. Right, we'll try again with the end wall now. Okay, so here we are with the end wall. I'm going to do the same again, so dust at the top. And get the top of the door, top of the window. And now I'll do a second coat but stay towards the top of the wall, I should say. And then a third coat around the top edge. So hopefully, yeah, it doesn't look too bad actually. This looks a bit better now that we're back in the lights. What I was after was like a bit like a zenithal prime. So we've got light and dark. So when I put the thin paint over the top, we've still got like a transitioning colour. Hopefully it works. Fingers crossed. Okay, so we're onto the painting stage now. I've mixed up a load of Zandri dust. and I've thinned it down to about 2 parts water and then 1 part paint, and I'll throw it through the airbrush and just try and get a nice coating. If this doesn't work, I'll do it all by brush. I still need to door in this colour, so I'll skip that bit. I got more out of it than I thought, so it's going to carry on with that now. So just coming to the end of the second coat now, and we can see that keeping the paint thin has meant that it's quite transparent, and we can see the work that we did with the airbrush still underneath, so we still got light and shadow, bit of variation on the brickwork, so happy with that. I'll just do the windows to finish, and we can think about the highlights then. Okay, so on to the highlight now. I've got a pot of Xandri Dust and Screaming Skull 50/50, plenty of water, and I'm just adding some more tones, bit of variation, but I'm going just stripes. Just where you saw them on the grey board. If you follow my stuff, the Chamber of Secrets one, you see it's just like lines basically. So I'm just gonna follow the same kind of pattern now, just to get more variation again. We can build this up then with a lighter colour going inside of that. Well, that'll do. Just don't forget we're doing oils on top of this as well, so bear with me. So I did an extra coat of the 50/50 mix, and now I've got Screaming Skull mixed with white, and I'm going to go inside the area that I've already sprayed, so just random patterns again, but staying within where you've been previously. I think I'm going to leave it there. So that's ready now for the next stage, which is going to be an oil wash. Okay, on to the next stage then is the oils. I've got some here. So we've got white, black, burnt umber and sap green. I've mixed the white and black together to make an extra one of grey, so I've added them there to the palette. I'm going to top up the white spirit because I need that as the thinners. I recommend you use a couple of brushes for the application, one for the dark colours, one for the light colours. And you start off just by dotting along the top. Change colour now. So black this time. I'll go in between the grey. Bit of brown. Just do random colours. I'm saving the green for down the bottom. It gives like a mouldy effect. It's quite cool. So once you've covered most of it, I'm just going to add a bit more black there. I'm going to add a little bit of white here and there just to counteract some of the black. See how it goes. I've never actually done the white with this technique yet, but we'll see what it looks like. The next thing you need is quite a big brush. Dip it in your thinner, take most of the excess off and just streak. You're probably thinking, what is he doing? But stay with me. Good idea to have some kind of protection at the bottom as well. Just to soak up the excess thinners that comes off. As you can see, you're getting different coloured streaks. It's all to get an extra bit of variation. I love variation, as you've probably guessed by now. And I need some more thinner. And just keep going until you're happy. You can get rid of all the colour if you wanted to, but I think it's nice to have little streaks here and there. Get rid of where the black was showing at the top. I'm just going to keep going until I'm happy. If I need more grey and white, I'll add it. If I want more black, I'll add it. I think I will add a bit more black. Let's get rid of the blobs up the top. Oh, I'm going to carry on with this. I'm going to add some more black actually. A bit further down. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with this until I'm happy, and we'll come back for the next stage. Okay, so I carried on doing the oils on the large part of the board. What you do is you dab your oil along the edge, do one section at a time, about that much, and pull the pigment in towards the middle, and then you put your oils on this side and then pull the pigment in towards the middle there, and then put some extra thinner and just thin it all out. These two here, I added a little bit of black in the middle and just added loads of thinner and just spread it all out. So yeah, it doesn't really matter how much thinner you put on, because it's all absorbed by the board anyway, and it'll all dry off. So don't be afraid if you put too much thinner on there. In fact, the more the better, and it'll make it more transparent. So yeah, once you do that, it's just a case of leaving it to dry. My plan is later on to give it a coating with clear lacquer that Halfords do. It's like a gloss varnish, and then I'll go over the top of that then with dull coat or something, just to take the shine off it, but it'll give it a nice bit of protection from in games. The other thing you could do is maybe get some Mod Podge, add some water to it, and then just brush it on. It's all just to stop it. It is susceptible to chipping if you drop things on it. The plaster will start showing through, and you'll have to colour it again. So, the more protection you give it, the better. Okay, on to the next stage is to put the brackets on the end of the board that holds the walls into position. What I've done is I've got hold of these mending plates from B&Q. Come in packs of 4s with plenty of screws with them, and I've drilled holes, 4 holes along the short end, and then another 4 along the long end, and it's just a case of screwing them in like I've done to the other ones here. Now, the second part of this is the actual walls. I shall show you now. Okay, so they lift up like that. For the walls, as you can see here, I've put magnets in there. It's just a case of cutting out a circle shape in the foam board. I use filler to just fill the void really that are created by the hole, and then put the magnet in over the top. You can see the filler sort of spilling out, so I know I've got a good seal behind there. The only thing to hold it in place then, I've only done this for speed, is use a bit of sellotape. But I'd recommend you use quick drying PVA or something like that, just to hold the magnets in place. So once you've got those sorted, it's just a case of getting the wall lined up, and then flick the brackets up. And the magnets will hold the wall in position. So I'm going to do the same now for the wall along the side. And we're getting near the finish then. Okay, there we are finished. Hopefully this will inspire you to make your own board. What I'm going to do, I had a chat with one of the boys at the tournament in Leeds. Thanks James if you're watching. Make a slight change on the walls, so to make higher walls, but to put the magnets in the front of the wall instead of in the back, and then I can attach them to the side of the board rather than use brackets. So maybe we'll look at that in the future. But yeah, if you do go ahead and try and make a board, I'd love to hear how you get on with it and how you find the process, and if you come up with any other tips to improve things, let me know. So yeah, for now that's it from me, and we'll see you in the next episode.